Let's get busy.
Herschel Zahnd in the house.
Hello, sir.
How are you, man?
I am wonderful.
Finally glad to have you on here. We're finally getting you on here. I think I've reached out to you at least once or 10 times, maybe.
Well, no, I feel like we did a phone back when we did the call. You did the call-in
you're
show.
right. That's right.
Because we talked about the eclipse and nuclear winter.
And how the fuck did that come up? the nuclear. But were we also, was Sean on that call too?
No, Sean was not on the call, and I remember I had to leave a pre-pro meeting for Antonio Pantoja's One Must Fall to do that interview on the phone. So I walked around the outside of his building for however long we talked while the rest of the crew was in there trying to hash out how we were going to get that film made.
We'll talk about that too.
Absolutely.
But that's how I came to know of you, is through Sean.
Okay.
Yeah. Sean had been.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I like Sean. Sean's was a recurring guest on the show back when it was a call-in a lot, and we'd always start talking politics and shit. Mm-hmm. You know, and he had his views, and which made for a good conversation with my other guests. But anyways, but getting to know Sean and the work he was doing with
De Vertrag.
Yeah, you say it.
The worst title for a film ever.
But that's how I come to know of you, and I was like, oh shit, this cat's pretty good. And,
I appreciate that.
And you actually weren't you? You actually did acting in that too, right? You were.
I did not act.
No?
I walked. There's a scene. There's a Steadicam oneer that follows the CIA people when they find their fellow compatriot shot in the head. The Steadicam follows them through a flood wall in New Albany, and if you look very carefully, there's a dude that is completely not dressed as any type of official cop who's wearing a fatigue jacket that pulls the crime scene tape across, and that was my Hitchcock moment.
Maybe that was what I saw.
Yeah,
but anyway.
now I have been an actor for 22 years now.
But you have been?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so just, yeah. Let's go back. Let's see, you live in Jeffersonville?
I do live in Jeffersonville.
Indiana all your life?
Yes, Indiana. I've actually lived in Indiana my entire life. I
Really?
tried to buy property or tried to get an apartment in college in Louisville, and it was too expensive for me. So I went back to Sellersburg.
Well, take us back in time. What was Indiana like? Your upbringing, all this? Give me the.
I was born a poor black child.
Yeah.
Name that movie.
Yeah. Is that Oprah's movie?
No, that is Steve Martin, the jerk.
Oh, Steve.
One of my most least favorite films, but that line has served me well.
All right.
Places like Banks. No, I was born in Seymour, Indiana, the same as the lovely Ashley Vega.
She was on.
You had her on a couple weeks
ago.
ago.
And Mr. Mellencamp.
And John Mellencamp. My dad went to school with John Mellencamp.
He's actually got trucks like mine.
Oh, there you go. My dad went to school with John, and my grandmother had some very interesting opinions about John Mellencamp.
Be honest, is your dad's name Jack and your mom Diane?
No, I wish because Mr. Mellencamp would owe me some
the
life
family,
rights.
yeah.
But no, my grandmother actually used to say I would not cross the street to talk to John. He was just John to my grandmother. But my grandmother was hilarious. She's the only person I've ever known to get kicked out of a high school basketball game and wasn't playing. Like, she got a technical foul for our team yelling, and I was not playing, by the way. I'm not a sports kid.
She was a grandmother at this time?
Yes, she was a grandmother at this time. My grandmother was a wonderful human and hilarious in every possible way.
Out of a high school basketball game.
Got a technical foul, and got ejected from a high school basketball game.
High school basketball in Indiana is pretty
no
damn
joke.
serious. It's very serious.
No joke.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Unless you're Ted Cruz and you call it a basketball ring.
Yeah, no.
That happened in Indiana, by the way.
Yeah, he did. That was right.
That was about 2 days before he dropped out.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I was born in Seymour, and then we actually moved to Fort Wayne, Indiana. So I got the whole northern Indiana experience, which is basically Canada.
What's the college town there? Isn't there a college town?
There's IPFW.
Okay.
There's not a whole lot going on there.
Not a major college.
Yeah, it's more of a commuter college. Yeah. And then I came back to Seymour for high school, and my arts life kind of started there. When I got to high school, I thought I was going to be a doctor, and then I had to take an arts credit. I couldn't play music, couldn't play any instruments whatsoever.
If you're going to be a doctor, you're going to play a doctor.
Exactly. I couldn't do art. Couldn't do band, couldn't do art, and they said you have to have a fine arts credit for this special diploma that you're going to get, and the only option was choir. And my dad, in an effort to get me to stop watching the Indiana Jones trilogy and then Star Wars trilogy on loop, made me watch a musical called Little Abner, which was made in the 50s. And lo and behold, the choir that first year of high school was doing Little Abner. So I already knew the musical. I knew the songs. I knew a lot of the dances because I was just fascinated with this movie because we watched it over and over again. And I got exposed to a lot of things through my parents by them trying to stop me from watching those films. You know, I watched Battlestar Galactica and got into Star Trek, and Sequest came out.
Why are they trying to?
Because they were tired of watching it.
Oh, they were tired.
You know, I mean,
not because of content. They it was.
No, although I still to this day cannot watch Luke get his hand cut off. I if you watch me, if I'm watching Empire, I will look away in that moment. I still can't watch it.
You're going to lose. You're probably going to. Hopefully, you don't stop this podcast, get up and walk away. But you're going to.
You're not a Star Wars fan.
I've never seen them.
Oh, well, you know, you're part of that, a very special, maybe 0.5% of the population at this point.
It's a small, yeah.
I recommend watching, if you're going to watch any of them, watch Empire. It really is.
See, actually, you're. I've heard that.
Yeah,
yeah.
It not only is it's not only the best Star Wars movie, it's one of the best sci-fi movies ever written, and probably one of the best movies of the 70s.
No. So the Empire is the one with actually Mark Hamill and.
Well, yeah, it was the sequel to New Hope.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
It's not Star Wars; it's
okay.
New Hope,
right.
But it's the sequel there, and yeah, it's the film that I think is the reason that Star Wars is what it is.
But can I watch that and be okay with not seeing the previews?
Because you everything you need to know about the Force from the first one you've heard quoted to you 100,000 times. So Empire is the movie where he was just not telling a single story. He was actually building the world.
Is that the one? Which is the movie where Vader proclaims his?
That's
the
Empire.
one.
Yeah.
And say it the right way. Because what's the old? What do they call that?
Well, everybody says.
What's that?
I am your father. But that's not. Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father.
Yeah.
He told me enough. He told me you killed him. No, Luke. I am your father.
Yeah.
So,
but what is that called when people? They think the movie titles or lines are a certain way.
It's an effect, and I can't remember.
It's not the Mandela.
The Mandela effect.
Mandela effect.
That's what it is. Yeah, the Mandela effect.
Which
I still believe that there is a Shazam movie starring Shaquille O'Neal, and nothing will ever convince me otherwise. That's a Mandela effect.
Yeah,
piece
but it's not Shazam.
No, he did Steel.
He did,
he did Kassam.
Kazam. Yeah.
Not Kazam, Kassam.
Kassam.
But he
with
an
S.
Yes, Kassam.
There's several of those kind of.
But there are absolutely.
Yeah, I just heard what was it one the other day? Someone threw one at me. It was people would call it Sex in the City.
Sex in the City instead of Sex and ampersand the City. Yeah. Which I have seen every episode of. By the way, my wife is obsessed with it. It's actually amazing writing and acting. It doesn't come down to necessarily Sarah Jessica Parker. It's Kim Cattrall.
It does.
Kim Cattrall, you can see her decision-making. And as I was in college when I really was being forced to watch all this, and I got to the point that I enjoyed it because I enjoyed watching Kim Cattrall and her process and getting to literally see the decisions that she was making on screen. It was phenomenal. Amazing actress.
And of course, first time I, like probably many people, got to see Kim Cattrall was what movie?
Mannequin, probably.
Not for me.
Or Big Trouble in Little China.
Not for me.
Okay, go ahead.
Porky's.
Oh, yes, I forget that she was in that, yes.
Yeah.
But of course, most people have never seen Mannequin at this point.
That's, what was it, Andrew?
God, I can't remember. What I'm talking about. I can't remember what that guy, but it was James Spader and Kim Cattrall. It was one of their early films.
Mannequin.
Yeah, Mannequin.
Okay. No, am I thinking the right one? With he was in Pretty in Pink. Is it Pretty in Pink?
Andrew.
Is it maybe not Pretty?
Yeah, he's got one of those four word names.
Anyways,
Anthony Michael Hall.
Him too.
Yeah.
No, the Andrew, the love interest for in Pretty in Pink, right?
The jock?
Not the jock. No, in Pretty in Pink with the ducky.
Yeah, Ducky.
And then, but
that was Anthony Michael Hall was Ducky.
No, that was That was the guy that was on 2 Men in a
John Cryer.
John
You're right.
Cryer, right.
You were correct. You were correct.
No, the guy
getting
I'm
my
thinking about,
80s movies references messed up.
he
I'm going
was
to lose
in,
my filmmaker card.
Damn it! What? He was no.
Okay, so this
He's
is what
a little preppy guy. There you go. Look it up.
This is what we do in the filmmaker world. We pull out the IMDb.
Yeah. He was the preppy guy that wound up, that really wanted to be with what's her name? What's the red
Molly Ringwald.
Molly, yeah. But his little clique, thought she was beneath them. So
And we had James Spader in that movie as well.
yeah, James Spader.
Andrew McCarthy was Blaine. Yes,
Blaine.
Yes.
Yeah, which is a Blaine.
Yeah,
That is a
Blaine. That sounds like something that I believe George Carlin made fun of. Blaine.
Blaine. Sound like a,
Yes.
That's it.
There you go.
Mhm. So I am. So.
Well done, sir. I was in Seymour, moved to Fort Wayne, came back to Seymour for high school, came down to New Albany to go to college, and ended up staying in the area, got sucked into the UPS vortex, and stayed there for 16 years, actually, while I was making films and doing commercials and, working all night to sleeping for an hour and then going and doing a 12-hour day on a set. And then...
Well, go back. Well, at what point, where did film become part of your routine?
Film became part of my routine right about 2006.
Okay.
And I was on, a belt at UPS, and I was a big theater kid. I mean, my goal was to, become an actor, travel, do musical theater, and just be in the theater. I thought film was beneath me. It's one of the reasons I've never seen The Room. Because I was such a theater nerd at that point. That film, that's a movie. That's not real acting. It's not. If it's not Shakespeare and Shaw, it's not real acting.
Give us your master theater voice.
My master theater voice. I don't really have a master theater voice, but I do have an Ian McKellen voice. I did that, and I got this wild idea that, it couldn't be that hard to write a movie, and of course it is that hard to write a movie, and I found that out writing my first film, which is yet to be produced. It's still sitting on a shelf mocking me every now and again, like, you never made me, and I was like, I'm going to get to you. But then I ended up...
What was it? How long ago was that?
Oh, gosh. I would have written that somewhere 2003, 2004,
okay.
Maybe 2005. I did a couple of small films, and my first film that I ever was in was actually in high school. One of my arch nemesis in high school did a film as a class project, and I played like an evil James Bond villain with a ridiculous like Romanian accent, I think. But the first film I did in college was actually a thing called Fluffy, or the cute and cuddly critter from outer space with the big blue eyes and button nose that will eat your face off and pick its teeth with your toes. I still remember that. That was a Righteous Insanity film by John Cosper. I went on to play...
John Cosper,
the wrestling writer guy. Yeah.
He was just on not too long.
Yeah. So, he gave me my first kind of taste
Didn't know that.
of this.
So
and I ended up doing three of those movies as Commander Stone Brockman. I actually, until they did the fourth one, I was the one who had been in all of them. I was the longest standing member of the Fluffy cast, and I'm still a little butthurt that I was not asked to reprise that role in Fluffy 4, but I've let it go at this point.
Look him in the eye right now.
Yeah.
Cosper?
Looking at it. Actually, it was Marty Polio, but that directed that one. But from there, it just kind of grew and wrote the film, and then I was all ready to go, and a graphic novel by the name of Girl Number 3 by Nathan Thomas Milner landed in my lap, and I immediately looked at my wife and said, "This is the story."
So you were married at this time?
I was married at the time, and she read it, and she agreed that it was a better story than what I had written, and we pursued that. And it took me 2 years to make the film, but we got it made, and it kind of all cannonballed from there. I did actually make another film before that, which was called Tolerance, which was a really fun film that was based... John wrote it also. It was based on that period of time when the... Native American tribes were kind of suing some of the colleges about the names, and it was that whole thing. So the whole joke of that film was aliens came to Earth and they were against sci-fi movies because it was portraying aliens in a bad light. And we made that movie. I directed it. I starred in it. I shot it. It was the worst mistake of my life doing all those things together.
Wow.
But we made that film, and along the way we had a TV show called Necroville Picture Show, which was a horror host type show. And then we got Girl Number 3 off the ground, and we turned around directly there and did A Wish for the Dead. And then it kind of snowballed from there. And Got to 2016, and I got fed up with my life at UPS, and I had enough connections. I had enough, in my opinion, ability that I stepped out on my own, and I've been doing it ever since. And I couldn't be happier, and that's where we are today.
I'm on your IMDb page, which
Oh
is
my.
always cool to have a guest. I think I fanboy out when I have a guest, and I can go to a reputable source.
Do I still have a picture up?
Do you?
I don't, because I'm too
No.
cheap to keep paying for it. I paid for it for like 3 years straight.
Okay, but where I'm going with this, as an actor, you've got 13 credits.
Yes.
You've probably done more than 13.
Yeah, those are the ones. Now, the first one there is one of my proudest moments.
What's the first one?
The first one that comes up that says
well,
post-production.
Which is the latest.
Yes, you can go ahead and read that title.
Devil's Revenge.
Devil's Revenge,
post-production.
written and starring William Shatner.
Oh, wow.
I did not actually get to work with Mr. Shatner, but if you look on this poster, that big creature that's behind Mr. Shatner is called the Einen, and I was one of 3 people that portrayed the Einen in that film.
Really?
And my goal is to, when they finally release this movie, I'm going to get a poster and I'm going to take it to a con and I'm going to pay Shatner his $78 or whatever it takes to sign that poster. And then at the table, I'm going to sign on the Einen right next to him and explain to him that I was that character. And I will proudly display this probably
So you're
questionable
under,
movie poster. I was in a full foam latex mask and suit made by the brilliant Vincent Guassini, who did the special effects on One Must Fall. He built that costume, and I mean, it was pants, a torso, a headpiece. They glued me into that costume. My agent really didn't want me to do this movie because it was a very low-paying job, and I said, look, somebody had to say yes to Michael Myers. Somebody had to say yes to Gunnar said yes to the Leatherface. This could blow up.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at it as playing the long game. It's probably not going to do very well, but this could be that thing that gets me into the cons. It could be a big deal. So I wanted to do it. Plus, I love monster movies.
Mm-hmm.
I love creature features, and I've always wanted to play one. And I got to do it, and I got to chase some people around and kill some people, and then they moved to Horse Cave and didn't take me with them, and it was quite sad. And
So it actually was filmed here.
yes, it was filmed here.
Oh, wait a minute. Who did I have on that shared that with me? Because they brought up Jerry Ryan.
Yeah, Jerry Ryan was a pleasure to work with. She was delightful.
Damn it. Who was it that brought that up? I can't remember.
It was kind of a little Star Trek because they had, I think, what was his name? Jason Patrick? Not Jason Patrick.
Jason Brooks.
Jason Brooks. He was on one of the later Star Trek shows, like an Enterprise or Discovery.
Well, all I remember is Jerry Ryan in her Star Trek outfit.
She's coming back. 7 of 9 is coming back.
Heard.
Yes, she's in Picard, which is going to be an amazing show, by the way.
Jerry Ryan. Yeah, that was like.
She was a
good
delight.
God. Damn, who was on that we talked about that? It had to be a film thing. So anyway.
There was a ton of us that were. Andrea all worked on it. Trevor worked on it. There was a ton of us that worked on that film.
So that was all done here.
Yep.
That's cool. When's it supposed to be?
I don't know. They dropped a music video, which was very odd. They dropped this music video with footage from the film, but every time Shatner showed up, he had his face blurred out. It was really strange. I have no idea. I guess maybe they didn't have the rights to use his likeness, so they covered. Like, it's so clear, like you can see the hairpiece,
right.
but
Wow.
you can't see his face. It was the oddest thing I've ever seen, but there it is.
And then I'm looking at I'm curious, of these other roles, movies that you're in, how many of these were local?
Probably most of them. I've only done a few, and actually a lot of the national.
That's local, isn't it?
Which one?
Loss
The
Prevention.
Loss Prevention. That was the Thought Fly guys. That was Matt Niehoff and Brian Cunningham.
Yes.
Great experience. I got to do. We called it the Man Purse Mafia because we were all in suits, but we had these little shoulder bags that we had our fake AK-47s in, and I got to do some cool stuff in that. I got to slide across the floor shooting guns, and got blown up by a microwave bomb. That was really fun, and I got to act with the amazing John Wells.
I know.
Yeah.
Even the most hetero guy will even turn his head to.
So, true story. I walked downstairs one morning on One Must Fall, and we started to run short on Tyvek suits because if you've seen One Must Fall, the cast, Antonio was very brilliant in his writing of the movie because he had everybody in Tyvek suits. And we started to run out of John Wells size Tyvek suits, and we kind of had to put him in a smaller Tyvek suit. So he's down there one morning, and he's like busting, his chest is busting out of this Tyvek suit. And I just kind of stopped, and I don't remember what I said to him, but he turned beet red because, you know, basically the entire cast sexually harasses John Wells at every possible turn, and he's a good sport about it.
Even the podcasters.
Absolutely.
But he's a good guy. And he's so fucking humble.
Yes.
I mean, good God, he looks like a fucking, you know.
Yeah, every selfie he takes looks like a Hallmark movie. It's really sickening.
I mean, But his
until he cuts his hair and then he becomes Finn Rider. So.
But he's not doing it to flaunt himself. It's just.
I mean.
Well, maybe. I don't know. Maybe he's got this.
I think he's just that damn pretty.
Motive. He is pretty.
He's just a pretty man.
Good guy. So 13, according to this, acting credits, but here 11 producer credits.
Yep.
Well, give me. Rob. I guess I was just clicking up. Oh, there it is.
Yes, the Vetrog.
Yeah. You got Andy Warhol's Enchantment. What's this?
Ashley Warhol. Ashley Warhol is
Ashley. I said
she
that.
is the lead singer of a band called Warhol, and she is actually.
There's
Ashley,
a relation.
If I get this wrong, Ashley, you'll have to forgive me. She is Andy Warhol's great grandniece, I believe, or great grandniece or something. She's a Warhol. He is an uncle of her. And she has a band called Warhol, and it's a very Evanescence-y type sound, beautiful voice, and she is also an instrumental composer. And she, with Creepy Attic Productions, Chris Maggard and Sean, brought me in to. I think I was originally asked to just help, and then Chris is not. Chris is in up near Cincinnati, and it went away. One of those towns just south of Cincinnati in Kentucky.
Covington.
No, it's right before Covington. It's in that general area, or it may be Covington. I don't know. I'm terrible. Yeah. Those are details that I don't have bandwidth to retain.
That's all right.
But she came down, and we went down to the Opera House that's in Cynthiana, which is this beautiful old theater, and Reed Masterson and Ashlyn Masterson, Masterson's Magic, they were the stars of that. So I ended up being the DP, and it was just a fun afternoon of watching master musicians work and then writing a story around what they're doing on stage, and that was that video. And I actually came back and ended up DPing and cam-opping her second music video, which we ended up doing almost all on Steadicam, which had fight scenes and all these big, long Steadicam oneers, which I'm a camera movement guy. It's one of my favorite things to do is to figure out creative ways to move the camera, and they just, when we were doing some pre-pro on it, the guy's like, Chris is like, I wish I had a Steadicam. I'm like, dude, it's in my garage. And he said, well, can you go get it? And I'm like, yeah. Okay, if you're going to let me do a whole video on the Steadicam, of course. So I did that, and that was a ball, and it's been a wonderful relationship. I think we have a few more projects planned with her coming up.
So 11 producer credits, and here's what I'm very interested in. You got 9 writer credits.
Yeah.
But for someone who says you're not writing...
Writing is... I have a love-hate relationship with writing. I hate the blank page. I suffer from blank page or blank canvas syndrome, like many artists. It's sometimes...
They could still call that writer's block. Is that right?
Writer's block, I think that's a little bit of a different thing. I think writer's block is more frustrating because you can't get the idea.
Gotcha.
It's very frustrating for me when I have the idea, but I just don't know how to start. And that's been the writing process for me. I felt like my writing has not always been my strongest suit. I feel that I'm a director at heart. But I'm actually in the middle of writing what was a short, will soon be a feature-length screenplay, and that is actually snowballed into now I've got 2 other screenplays that are on deck. So I think I'm in the midst of writing about 4 screenplays right now with different people. So I guess I have to stop saying I'm not a writer because I am. I wrote a few scenes here and there for Girl Number 3. Nathan Thomas Milliner did the bulk of the writing on that, as well as Wish for the Dead, and then I would come in with, an extra scene here, an extra scene there. And I think I've always felt
is that because of your directing skills that you...
I think that's a little... I don't feel I'm a good writer. I feel I'm a good fixer.
Yeah,
I feel I can stand, a mile above the script and see what it needs. And I think that's where my strengths are. With De Vertrag, for instance, I came to Sean. I had an idea one night, and I went to Sean. I said, I think this is what the movie's missing. And I explained my reasons why, and I handed him the scene that I'd written that night, and he said, yes, this is it. And I checked with Jamie, who was the writer on De Vertrag, and he agreed. It was exactly what the thing needed. And that was actually that scene that I ended up cameoing in, because it was one of those things we were only supposed to have the actors for the morning. And I went to them, I explained what I was doing, and I don't know an actor alive that's going to say, oh, no, please don't give me more screen time. Beth Beck and Mark Mahone were wonderful, and James Holman. I almost forgot his name. Sorry, James. James Holman, who played the CIA agent that was killed in that, he actually had to make a special trip up to Lexington to lay in a body bag. But that's the beautiful thing about actors, and especially actors that are working at the level. They will travel. They will do whatever they have to do to get time in front of that camera. And for me as a director, and also as an extension of writer or cinematographer,
even if it's just
a little thing,
the body bag, but I guess
it's important to me to make sure that they get that time. And I have only a couple of times in my career had to completely cut somebody out of a movie, and I work very hard to make sure that doesn't happen, because it's happened to me. I've actually worked on bigger budget films that I know I was in the scene, and the scene got cut, and it hurts. It hurts when you go and you see it, and you're waiting for it, and the area, because you don't always get on a bigger production, you don't always get the script. So just where generally where you were geographically, so you kind of infer, and then it doesn't come up, and that's, as an actor, that's devastating.
And then if you're cut, you don't make the final product. Do you not get credit? How does that? It's
a very convoluted process. And it's changed a little bit with union rules. When you get into the higher echelons, of course, you have union things. And, you may have, for instance, not a lot of people know this, Coolio is in the Ben Affleck Daredevil movie. There was an entire storyline where Matt Murdock was forced to represent somebody that he knew was guilty. Like, he knew that Coolio's character did what he did, and he had to try to defend him, and when he really wanted to go kill him. And they ended up cutting that out of the director's cut. And I don't remember if he was credited. I think he was, but again, rules change so often, it's hard to say. But a guy like me, if I'm lucky enough to get in the credits,
right.
If my character gets cut, I'm probably going to be cut out of the credits, which again, it can be devastating.
Yeah. Well.
Emotionally and financially.
No, potentially financially.
Yeah.
Because you've got to build your resume.
You got to build your resume, but also you got to build your residuals.
Right.
That's that magic thing that you get to as an actor is, you want to be continuing to make money on the projects.
Because ultimately it is about making money.
Well, it's called show business. And that's what a lot of people forget. And especially when you're somebody like me who has been moving steadily up from micro budget or no budget filmmaking into the upper starting to get, I'm not going to say I'm anywhere near the upper echelons, but when you're starting to get to a higher level, you sometimes have this morality crisis of, I've asked all these people to work for free, but now I don't want to work for free. Now, always before I had a job, so this is my passion. This is I'm doing these movies for fun.
Right.
Now, if I step on set with my camera, I should be making money because that's how I feed my family.
Exactly.
That's how I pay my bills. So there is a little bit of crisis of conscience that you go through, trying to come up in the business the way I did.
At this stage of your career, are you? What's the best way to put this? Is there, in the work that you're doing, do you have this line that this is the either budget wise or the amount of money that you need to get out of this? Is there a number that has to be there for you now at this point in your career?
There's a number that I've actually laughed about this because I stressed about leaving UPS, and I think this is kind of my new mantra and the thing I try to teach people that are trying to get out of a situation to come into this world. Because, I think one of like the top 3 things that a parent does not want to hear is that their child wants to go into the arts as a profession. You don't want to hear, I want to be an actor, I want to be a filmmaker, I want to be an artist. You don't want to hear that as a parent. It's terrifying. And there's a lot of parents, I think, that don't understand it. They're not prepared for it, especially if you have 2 parents that are, very right-brained individuals, and, they don't understand us left-brainers. But I encourage everyone to take that leap, because I was stressed for years, almost 2 decades, about leaving a job that at my peak I made $359 a week. That's what my paycheck was. I almost don't leave the house for that now. And I mean, that's not bragging. That's just me saying, holy crap, I could have been doing this all along. Mm-hmm. It is possible. And I give people those numbers, again, not to brag, because I don't make that good of money, but it's possible. You can do this. Mm-hmm. And that's what I like to encourage people who are maybe him and Han. I don't know if I can leave my Starbucks job. Yeah. Yes, you can. Now, you may need to stay at it. You may have to. I told my wife when I left, I was like, I fully expect I may have to get a corporate job somewhere at some point. I may get tired of, doing my own taxes and doing all that stuff. It may get exhausting. I know I'm going to be doing something in the arts, but I may have to go back. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with somebody who decides. I have a very good friend, John Mattingly. He decided to give up his larger recording space to move into his basement recording studio, back into his basement recording studio, for his family, for his sanity. And it's turned out very well. He still gets to do what he loves. And I was very proud of him. And he was pretty bummed out about it. But I said, no, you are doing what you need to do for this stage of your business. Mm-hmm. So that is the thing that I really try to push people is it's possible. You can do it. If I can do it, if my ignorant self can do it, anybody can do it.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I'll use me as an example. I've, done corporate IT all my work life. Mm-hmm. And would I want this to blossom into something that I can monetize and put that in the rear view? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm having fun doing it. So
absolutely. And another thing, for all of I have people that still follow me that work at UPS. I'm not anti-UPS. No. UPS gave me a steady paycheck. It gave me insurance. It got me 2 college degrees. It allowed me to learn the skills that I needed to learn. I'm very grateful, and not just allowing me time to go out and make movies and learn the technical aspects of the filmmaking process, but the personal interactions that I learned working there were invaluable. So I'm very grateful to that time. Now, I'm very glad to see the back of it, and I never want to see the inside of a cargo aircraft again unless I'm shooting on one. But
and maybe one day you will.
Maybe one day I will.
Let's go switch to the photography thing, because as I'm got to know your work more, you're pretty badass when it comes to the photo thing. Your images are just amazing.
Well, thank you.
And what's the mindset when you go and you're?
The mindset came when I went on a set with Troy King, Zach Schuyler, and Ken Daniels. They asked me to come work on a vampire film that they were doing, and I cannot remember the name of the film. I used to think that was the weirdest thing, is when I would meet larger named actors and directors. I've gotten to do small things with John Carpenter. I've gotten to do things with Henry Winkler. I've gotten to photograph those guys. Nice. So I've gotten to just do these little snippets, because a guy like that in the situation we're in, I maybe get to ask John Carpenter one question, and it always amazed me that, especially the actors, they don't remember every film they are. It's like, how could you not remember being in a movie? That's my young, naive self. And I've actually gotten to that point that, oh my gosh, I don't remember every movie that I've ever been in. You get to where you've worked on hundreds and hundreds. Or anything. Yeah, it's just it's no longer, I was in this movie. It's like, I worked on a Tuesday. Right. So I was there. I had just gotten my first camera, which is a Canon XL2. It was a mini DV tape recording camera. I used to have to go buy these things at Sam's Club for $20.
When was this?
This is like 2005, 2006. Okay. I had a Canon XL2, and I go on set, and they're shooting on a Canon 7D. And it was the first time I'd ever seen somebody using a still picture camera as a video camera. And I looked at it and was like, yeah, it's nice. Not a film. I think that's the one thing I have developed as I've gotten older is I've gotten rid of some of my elitism, because as a young actor, film was for lesser actors, and now it was like, oh well, you're not shooting your movie on a film reel, so it can't be. But I looked at it like that'll never take. And then a year later, I had borrowed Ken Daniels' T2i to make my first digital feature, which was called The Trimmer. And I fell in love with it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to buy a camera. And I did a job. I did a Fred Olen Ray movie called Bad Blood, The Hatfields and the McCoys. Ran my ass off for 9 days. I actually, I think this is my mindset. It's either my craziness or just the mindset that I think it takes to succeed. I broke my foot running on that film. I tightened my boot and I kept running. Now, do I recommend that? No, that's dumb. I should have gone to the first AD and said, hey, I think I've done something to my foot.
He's a gamer.
But, that it was just my mindset. I can't lose this job. And I made like $900. And that was huge for me. That was the biggest paycheck I'd ever had on a movie. And I'm doing this as a PA, by the way. I mean, my job was to put up pop-up tents and basically track Priscilla Barnes around the set because we could never find Priscilla. Timidly knocking on Jeff Fahey's door, please don't kill me, Mr. Fahey. I'm waking you up at 5:30 in the morning. And I bought my first T3i, Canon T3i. I shot 2 movies on that camera. I shot the hell out of that camera. And it was a still picture camera. And that kind of gave birth to this whole idea that I used to have when I was buying gear. If it doesn't have 3 uses, I'm not going to buy it. So I had this whole functionality on this camera, and I knew if I could learn to take a still image, it would make me a better cinematographer. Because the principles are the same. Shutter speed, all the technical ins and outs. There's a few differences between motion pictures and still images, but largely it's all the same. And I just started messing around, and I kind of learned through experimenting. I sort of had an eye for it. And then, because I had it, the biggest thing that I got into, you always do a wedding. And as I told somebody earlier today, I abhor doing weddings. I try to charge exorbitant rates so people don't ask. But I did a few weddings, and then I got into doing headshots. And luckily, I have I'm an actor. I have a built-in, base, and I've been lucky enough to work with some amazing actors and take some headshots. And I ended up with Friday Night Film Festival photographing John Carpenter for his photo ops, and photographing Henry Winkler and Michael Biehn and Edward Furlong and the cast of The Nerds, which was one of the more nerve-wracking experiences of my life. We brought in an antique chair for John Carpenter to sit in because he was the king of horror. And he looked at the chair and was like, I'm going to sit in that damn chair. I'm going to stand up because I'm going to put my arm around people and give a thumbs up, because that would, like, every picture with John Carpenter.
That's cool.
So the nerds were like, we'll use the chair. And I'm like, they're putting the people in the chair and they're all surrounding them. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I borrowed this from my mother-in-law. The nerds are going to, like, Ogre's going to break my chair. Which Ogre was one of the nicest guys ever, by the way.
Ogre from the
Nerds. The guy from, what's in your wallet? That dude. One of the most hilarious, tall, huge.
Big guy,
yeah. But we had everybody but John Goodman and Anthony Edwards. Everybody that you would want to see from the jock. We had those 3 weren't there, but everybody else was there. And they were so wonderful. They signed a poster for me.
I like that.
Yeah, and I have a wonderful Revenge of the Nerds memento.
You mentioned Michael Biehn.
Michael Biehn. Michael Biehn.
Biehn. I had a conversation with someone the other day. We were talking about some great drama / no, not drama, more horror monster. I don't know. I just remember throwing his name up because of Terminator, Aliens. Tombstone was in the 80s.
He was Doc Holliday.
But there's probably a couple more that I can't remember. But he was like in the 80s. Like,
he 80s and early 90s. He was all over the place, yeah. And his wife was a delight. I got to know her very well through the con circuit, and they filmed a production company and have been doing their own films. And actually, he just did an audio dramatization of, and that's something I didn't know, but apparently there was another script of Alien 3 before the one that got shot. It was much more centered. It took Ripley kind of out of it, which I think why they dumped it. But it focused more on Bishop and Michael Biehn's character. And they actually got to go through and they got Lance Hendrickson and Michael Biehn together and they did an audio dramatization of it. And they've actually brought Newt back in. I think that may have been the other thing is that girl didn't want to come back. But it was a very interesting tale. So he's still out there doing his thing.
So there's an actual audio of this?
Audible.
Audible? Okay, wow.
God bless Audible. Because I don't have time to read.
I have to check that out.
Can't recommend that enough.
What's also boudoir? You into that? You doing that?
I do a lot of very odd things. I decided a while ago that other than headshots, photography was because I kind of got away from doing horror, and I love making horror movies, but you don't want to pigeonhole yourself too much as a director, unless you can become the next,
John Carpenter.
We used to say, who's going to be the next John Carpenter or Jordan Peele. Jordan Peele is, the next John Carpenter or the next Wes Craven. So unless you're going to be Jordan Peele and become the guy that's going to shift horror or the guy that did Heredity, you kind of have to diversify, and that's what I wanted to do. And the last film I actually did was a family comedy, which was very odd. But I decided that when I was not doing headshots, that my photography was going to kind of explore my darker tendencies. And I actually did a whole series on nightmares, which is kind of ongoing.
Really?
But,
I would love to know that and follow that. Where is this at?
It's all if you go to h2z3photovideo.com, you can see it's called Nightmares and Dreamscapes, and there's about 5 photo sets that we did. It was eventually was to be a gallery show. It's just I've not gotten enough of them done. But I like putting, because I'm a storyteller, I like putting stories together. And, these all centered on some type of a nightmare. One was, having your heart ripped out. And that was, that kind of manifested itself as in a girl found out her boyfriend was cheating on her, and she cut her chest open and ripped her heart out. And it's a very violent imagery, and we found these dead flowers in the studio, and we had this big knife, and I did a high-speed shot of her cutting the head off the flowers, and the heads were going everywhere. And then, you see the next shot, she pulls her dress to the side and stab. It's like she's going to stab into her chest, and then the next shot, she's ripped. We had a mechanical heart that actually beat, and we did a little makeup on her chest, and she was holding her heart out to the camera.
Not a snuff film.
No, not a snuff film.
Sure. Have you ever done it?
Negative.
Would you?
No, definitely not that.
That really,
but
those really happen.
They really happen, and 8mm is a very interesting piece of Nick Cage cinema. Yeah. Yes, you can mention something, and I probably know a film that fits in that genre because I'm a little bit of an encyclopedia. Although I'm not as good as my friend Sandra.
Well, go back real quick. John Carpenter, The Thing.
Mm-hmm.
They're at the very end. Who's The Thing?
The Thing is honestly not one of my favorite films. I've only seen it once, and I don't remember a whole lot about it.
Well, that's who is it? Shit.
But again, I think that's the brilliance of John Carpenter. You've got a film that's been out there like The Thing.
The actor, who's
Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell, yeah.
Who I've also worked with.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He couldn't remember his lines. It was kind of funny.
Oh yeah. So the Thing. That's one of my favorite.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those films that it's been around for 40-some years, and we're still trying to figure it out. I mean, I love that. I mean, that's the goal, is to make a film that has that kind of sticking power. And you look at guys like Carpenter, like Wes Craven. Wes Craven changed the horror movie industry like 3 times. Like, what a legacy! And he, sadly, the only one I didn't meet. But,
so you gravitate to the horror side.
I love horror movies.
Yeah.
I love the thrill of horror movies. I love all the different technical challenges that come with making horror movies. Figuring out the makeup, figuring out how the effects are going to work. When the effects don't work, that's also just great fodder.
Not a fan of the host Marvel.
Oh, I love Marvel movies.
Do you?
I love superhero movies.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love movies. I mean, if I can be entertained by it, I mean, and it can be any genre. I mean, I love foreign films.
What's your take of somebody like M. Night?
I think M. Night Shyamalan is a brilliant director. I think he is a brilliant writer. I think he's still one of the finest screenwriters out there. I think he has had some missteps. I think Avatar was definitely something that he should have left to somebody else. But, I mean, there's no doubt that he's a genius.
Avatar, wait a minute. Avatar.
He did Avatar: The Last Airbender movie.
Oh,
that was his. That was his. I can do something other than signs, and Yeah, no, you can't. Yeah. But, all these guys, there's a little bit of genius in all of them.
Mm-hmm. Who's hot? Who's the hot writer, director these days?
Jordan Peele.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, I mean, now, granted, I have yet not seen Get Out yet. I saw Us. Was not all that impressed with Us, but I like 80s horror films, and I think we're getting further and further away from that, which is probably a good thing because they are tropey, but it's what entertains me. And as an artist, you're always trying to figure out, are you going to be trendy and do the thing that everybody is going to do that's going to make the money, or are you going to make the art that you want to make? And that's a very hard balance when you're talking about 15, 20, $100 million.
Exactly.
And I in my personal opinion, you take the Matrix movies. Some people love the third Matrix movies. I choose to believe that there aren't a second and third Matrix movie. Like, it ends with Matrix 1 with me. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I mean, but I will give the Wachowski siblings this. They held to their vision, and that's hard to do, especially in that time in Hollywood.
What's on? Give me an idea. What's on the Herschel's on bucket list?
Herschel's on bucket list, as in
anything.
I want to tour Scotland. I would love to take a month-long backpacking trip through Scotland.
You brought it. That's a good point. Non-film professional career, personal. What's on your bucket
personal
list?
Things that are on my bucket list? Again, I would love to take a 30-day backpacking trip through Scotland and just see that terrain. Mm-hmm. I would love that. I would love to take a submarine and see the Titanic, because the Titanic has actually been a fascination point of mine since I was 11 years old. I knew more about that ship at 11 years old than James Cameron did.
Why?
I was fascinated by the story, particularly Thomas Andrews, the guy who designed it. The guy who, and it happens that one
You're
of my...
talking about the behind the story, behind the scenes.
Well, and what fascinated me about that story was the arrogance of it. For one.
Actually, that's a really good point.
And I was in a very religious point of my life, so the whole idea that God himself couldn't sink this ship, that I was like, what arrogance. But when I really started to delve into Thomas Andrews and every depiction of him, and also the historical accounts of people that saw him, he was the one that knew. Like, he did the math. Yeah. He knew, and as depicted in the Cameron film, the last place anybody saw him was standing in the dining room by that fireplace. And his story and Charles Lightoller, who was the second officer, he was the only member of the senior bridge crew that survived. Their stories just fascinated me, and that's probably where my love of storytelling really began, was with understanding those stories.
I like that.
So I would love that. There is unfortunately an underwater tidal wave that's about 20 years from burying it forever. There is a seismic activity that is about 200 miles away from the Titanic wreck site now.
Shit. And
eventually the site will be completely covered eventually. So thank God Cameron has done as much preservation work as he has. So that's the bottom of the world. I would also love to summit Mount Everest. I at a young age loved rock climbing. Now I'll probably never do that because my body is already started I'm not allowed to rock climb anymore. More or less, I can boulder, but I would love to. I did a documentary in the Philippines a few years ago. I followed a mission team, and
you got to go to the Philippines.
I got to go to the Philippines and saw some amazing things. Saw some things that infuriated me. Saw some things that made me hopeful for humanity. All in the same day. It was a very life-changing experience. But he actually ended up in Tibet with another mission group, and we were maybe going to go and follow him a little bit more, and he said, I'll take you hiking on the south face of Everest. And I had the backpack. I was ready to go that day. So those are some things that I would love to do. I would love to see the pyramids. I worked with a guy at UPS from Egypt, and I said, one of my dreams is to see the pyramids. He's like, the pyramids. I used to play soccer by the pyramids.
Who made the pyramids?
Aliens.
Are you being serious?
No, I would say that there is a more than average chance that Jewish slaves had a lot to do with it. But
the precision, everything about it.
You look at something like that, and he's like, that could never happen again, but it did. Look at George Lucas. he effectively created the film version of the pyramids. And you would think, in 1975, when he's writing The Adventures of Luke Starkiller, could he have known that was going to become
That's
the multi-billion-dollar philosophy? So, who knows? But, I think losing the library at Alexandria probably put that to our knowledge of that forever. That went up in smoke at that point in time.
Anything else personally on the bucket list?
The bucket list, other than just seeing the world, I mean, I want to experience as much of life as I can.
You say the word space?
I'd go to space. Oh, I'd go to space in a heartbeat. Yeah.
What's the notion, following up, with Elon Musk and all this, the notion that we're going to be putting people on potentially Mars or in space?
I don't think in our lifetime. I think eventually we're going to have to colonize other planets because we're going to kill this one.
So you do believe in climate?
I believe in climate change. Yeah. How much man-made climate change there is in the world, I think that's up for debate. But the climate's been changing since time immemorial. I mean, evolution, climate change, these are irrefutable scientific facts. Now, how much greenhouse gas and plastic and, plastic bendy straws, how much that's affecting it, I'm not qualified to say. But I think, eventually humankind will have to get beyond terra forma to survive.
Agree. Totally agree. Let's go back to a bucket list professionally. What's left or what needs to be crossed off your list before you...
So, again, it's an interesting dynamic that it's always changing. The goal for so long was get out of UPS, be a full-time filmmaker, Oh, crap, I did that. Now what? So the next immediate bucket list thing is I want to direct another feature. It's been many, many years since I've directed a feature, and I mean, I was very heavy-handed. Nathan Thomas Milner, I've had people ask me this. Nate directed Wish for the Dead. No doubt. Now, I was very heavy-handed as a producer and first AD and all those jobs, but that was my job. I was there to make sure that we got the film done. That was my world. But he directed the film. So it has actually been since Girl Number 3 that I have directed a feature film. I've been, extremely involved in many projects that I'm very proud of, but I haven't had that film that has had, that feature film that says directed by Herschel Zahnd. So that is my next thing. And as a solo, I've actually got a couple of projects coming up that I'm going to be co-directing, which is great. I'm really excited. It's always fun to collaborate because I firmly believe that film is the ultimate collaborative team sport. But I want that. A lot
of moving parts.
It's a lot of moving parts. And, I want that one film, and it doesn't even have to be a huge film. I don't know that I ever want to direct a Marvel movie. I think it'd be fun, but I think it would also just be... There's a lot of responsibility there. I mean, dream role, yeah, I'd love to direct a Batman movie. I mean, I would love to do that. But I don't know. I think it would be more interesting to direct a Slumdog Millionaire or, a film that something like, what was that movie? Night of the Scarecrow. One of those type of films that, yeah, maybe it's not this huge commercial success, but everybody loves it beyond recognition. I mean, I've seen a lot of guys at these cons and, I'm sure I think about Clive Barker. He's so sick of talking about Hellraiser, but if it wasn't for Hellraiser, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. I love that movie. And, I would love to make a film that has broader emotional impact. And I have several people that tell me all the time that Girl Number 3 is their favorite independent horror film. And that means so much.
I've not seen it. I got to get it.
It's on Amazon.
It is on Amazon. Okay.
Yep. We have partnered with the Shami Media Group, and we actually have almost all of our films are on Amazon Prime. So you can get them all out there, including our Clive Barker fan film that we did. We did a film called On My Way to Hell.
So I'll be binge watching you.
Yeah, there you go. So I would love to make a film that has that broad emotional impact that would be that Hellraiser or that Star Wars for that kid that's out there that really wants to make a movie. I would love to, because I don't have children. I don't know that I will ever have children. So my legacy does have to kind of come from my art, and that's important to me. I want to create that art that makes people think, that makes people inspired to do and to entertain other people. I mean, and that's at the core. I think we get so caught up in the business we forget that as filmmakers, our first responsibility is to entertain people. We're giving people that escape. I mean, Iron Man can't fly.
Right.
You know, actually, Iron Man can fly. Adam Savage proved that this year. But that suit doesn't exist, and probably will not exist for another 50 years.
Do you see yourself ever leaving the area?
I hope so. I hope so. Oh yeah, no. If I had my druthers, I would be in New York right now.
Okay.
It's my favorite place in the world is New York City. But no, I mean, I'll never forget that first time that score played. And I mean, I listened to that Iron Man score so many times. And when he took that first flight, it was just, I mean, I'm almost tearing up thinking about it. I mean, there are so many wonderful moments in the cinema, and they go back to, you know, Metropolis and Bogey. You think I'm going to say Casablanca, but I'm not. No. I'm thinking about African Queen and Jimmy Stewart, and it goes all the way forward. There's been just these incredible moments that make you feel so much, and that's our responsibility as filmmakers, is to entertain people, and that's the first and foremost thing. And to continue that legacy.
Yeah, good take. Now, do you think the talent in town, is it enough to? Do you feel like there's enough talent? Let me make sure I word this the right way, so I'm not offending anybody.
Don't try to not offend anybody.
No,
ask the question, because I already know what you're going to ask. So just ask it.
Is there enough talent in town to keep your game sharp? To keep you? I mean,
short answer, yes, but like all things.
Yeah.
First of all, let me say that the talent in this town is immeasurable. There are people in this town capable of creating anything that your dreams could ever imagine.
I think so.
And I've had a theory for a number of years. I would always be on these, and I'm kind of the dude that's kind of skated. I try not to participate too much in the drama. Like if I'm participating in the drama is real, okay? And it takes a lot for me to participate in the drama. And I'd be on this set, and all these guys are hating on this dude over here, and then all these guys over here are hating on these dudes that are over here. And I'm looking at all these people, and I'm like, you all are so flippin' talented, it's stupid. Why aren't we working together? And we finally did that this year. We brought together, for our film A Horse Apiece, we brought together the crew from Small Step Films, Ville TV Network, and Renegade Art, and we created a 15-minute film that I think is one of the finest comedies that Louisville's ever turned out. Performances are hilarious, the story is heartwarming, and it's actually given birth to what I think is going to be 4 or 5, maybe even 6 more sequels with those characters. If we can find them.
Is this available?
It will be shortly. We're finalizing a festival run for that, but it's already played at the Short Film Slam, Louisville Film Society, and it just played at the Below the Line Film Festival at Tim Faulkner Gallery. So we're going to be pushing that out, so there'll be more things coming. But the film is called A Horse Apiece, which is a Arizonian colloquialism that we still don't really understand, and it was a joke that was put into the film by the co-director Austin Sheehan, and I was like, Austin, what the crap does this mean? And he's like, it's just like, I was like, so you don't even understand it. And I said, I think we should cut this joke. And then Frank Whitaker said, I think that should be the title of the film, because at that point the movie was called Untitled Bank Robbery Film. Yeah. And I was like, okay, it's the title of the film. And we're actually, this whole series, we lovingly call them the Three Amigos films. Yeah. But it's all going to be these little horse-related colloquialisms. So, it'll be, beating a dead horse, a horse of a different color, all these kind of things. But we made this film, and it was so fantastic, and everybody worked so well together that we said, okay, well, 48-hour film project's coming up. So we, doubled down on it, and, 48-hour film project, you really have to be careful how many people you bring in, because you get too many people involved, it can fall apart. We had 38 people.
Holy shit.
On our 48, now only 35 ended up showing up and working on it, but 35 people from 5 different production companies. We had Creepy Attic Productions, we had Ville TV, Small Step, Renegade Art, and Crimson Night Films. All came together to not only make the film, but do a documentary, a behind-the-scenes documentary about our process.
That's cool.
And we made a film that was good enough to win the Audience Choice Award, or tie for the Audience Choice Award, which is the first time I can ever remember that happen. I've done the 48-Hour Film Project 11 times.
Wow.
That's the first time I've ever heard that happening. So we've proven now twice in the same year that we are actually stronger together, and that's what I've always tried to get across to people who have come into town to make movies. Talent is not geographic. You don't have to be from New York, Chicago, LA, Atlanta, Toronto. We have the talent here. Now, what we don't have is money. We don't have the funding. That's always the rub of every film. But the talent's here, and if we continue on the trajectory that we're at, if we keep bringing people in, and we can get these film incentives figured back out and get them to where we're bringing in larger productions that we can not only profit from as filmmakers, but they're also going to bring that extensive knowledge to us that we can learn from.
That's a good point, too, yeah.
If we can do that, it's limitless. Yeah. Kentucky has, I think, much more than Indiana. I love Indiana. I'm so proud to be a Hoosier. Never want to not live in Indiana if I'm in this region. But Kentucky has such a crazy diverse... I found out recently we actually qualified this year as a tropical climate because of our humidity.
Didn't know that.
But we have this incredible landscape where we have mountains, or we have caves, or we have plains. There's so much here. Yeah. There's so much here that hasn't been seen. So long-winded answer to say yes, there is enough talent to keep me sharp, certainly, because I'm at best middle of the pack. But to keep us all growing, if we're open to it. Yeah. Now, if we get a big head and, we're from Louisville, blah, blah, blah. If we do that, no, we're going to crash and burn. But if we keep open and we keep trying to grow ourselves as artists, as technicians, as filmmakers, there's no limit to what we can do.
Fair. Okay. All right. Last segment is my little rapid fire, what I call round of shots.
Now I'm going to get in trouble.
Just play along. It's fun. First concert you attended?
First concert that I can remember, Patty Loveless.
Really?
Chains, Shackles and Chains.
That's a good one.
Love Patty Loveless.
If you were stuck in an elevator with a celebrity, who would it be?
Oh, Anthony Hopkins, so I can listen to his voice.
That'd be a good
and just get him to quote Shakespeare at me.
Superpower, what would it be?
Flight.
With or without a cape?
Oh, with a cape. If you're going to fly, you got to have a cape. It's a rule.
Pet peeve.
Pet peeve. People who jump the gun. Rushing into a situation without some semblance of a plan. Even if it's a bad plan, make a plan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but just going off half-cocked. The guys who tap their head when you say, "What's the shot list?" Oh, it's all up here. Bye.
Are you a pizza fan?
Massive pizza fan. It's probably my favorite food.
Give me your the Herschel pizza topping. Perfect pizza topping for you.
Okay, I have like about 3 that I love, but the 2 that are my favorite are probably pineapple and ham. It does go on pizza, and barbecue chicken. I love me some, but I also love margarita pizza. So I mean, there are so many
margarita. I don't know.
Yeah, the margarita pizza.
Oh, I didn't know.
It's like one of the original ones, actually.
Oh.
Whole big story that we'll go into later.
Okay, for the second podcast we do.
Yes, exactly.
If you had access to a time machine and can go anywhere in the past to observe, where would you go?
Probably Egypt. I want to see who built the pyramids and if these battery things worked.
Battery.
Yeah, they think there was a battery out there.
Yeah.
But no, I think seeing ancient Egypt would be fascinating, and actually seeing real medieval times if you could not get yourself burned at the stake.
Oh yeah, all in the name of religion. Okay.
And scene. That's for you, Sean.
Yeah. These last 3 are what I think are the 3 most important questions in the world. First 2 are yes or no.
Okay.
The last one is a 1 or 2 sentence response. 1, is there a God?
Yes.
2, are we alone in the universe?
No.
3, what happens when we die?
We transcend.
2,
the next plane of existence, whatever it may be.
Okay. What would you think? What is maybe to you?
As I said, I grew up in a very strong religious background, so I do believe in a heaven, and I do believe in a hell. My personal belief is it's all the same thing, and I'll probably catch some flack for that, but I think God, Jehovah, and Allah are all the same being. And I think that the constant war and infighting about what the guy's name is, really, guy, girl, whatever it is, I think that's silly. I think we're actually all talking about the same being, and you should worship that being in the way that best suits your culture and life.
Good answer. Share with people, where can they find you and your lovely work, your beautiful work?
Well, thank you.
Social media.
The websites are renegadeartproductions.com, which will be under maintenance very soon, and h2z3photovideo.com. That's where you can find most links to all of our films, the music videos, the photography, all things of that nature. We're also on Facebook, Herschel's on Photography, Renegade Art Productions. I would be remiss to not mention my partners at Ville TV, Small Step Films, Creative Motion Studios. We're really, and I'll just put this on this public forum. I'm just going to take a minute and stand up on my soapbox.
Do it.
Sean Burton Saunders. He is a very divisive individual. There is no doubt, and he relishes that. I have been around this man more than most, and there is not a person in this community that cares more about bringing it together.
He gets a little bit of a bum rap.
He gets a major bum rap, and I've told him to his face,
He's always
probably
been good to me.
75% of it is earned. But
And he'll probably say the same.
there is I have met very few people in my life that cares more about friends, family, and bringing together this artistic community. So what he is trying to do with Creative Motion Studios, which is a big umbrella conglomerate of all these different companies, is amazing. And let's just all be friends. It's not that hard. It really isn't that hard. And I look at people that I want to hire, and it's like, just give it a chance. But, there it is.
There are
That's
clicks.
Me.
There are clicks.
There are definitely
Big time
clicks.
clicks.
And, those people that are in those clicks are damn talented.
They are, yeah.
They are. And
But
I love
if
them
they
all.
could cross,
If we could
over,
all work together,
Yeah.
what a world we would make. And I think that's true of every race, creed, religion, political affiliation. If we
Should
could
be.
just get over ourselves and work together, what a world we could make.
Herschel, thanks for hanging out with me,
Thank you, sir.
my man. Love your work, man.
Thank you.
All right.
Keep up what you're doing.